You're listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more, visit lifeinquebec.com.
This is a recording of an article that first appeared in the September 2016 issue of Life in Quebec Magazine. It's called Educating Children by Unschooling Them, and it was written by Juanita Craig. For some, a child starting school for the first time can create enormous anxiety about everything from cost and logistics to the possibility of catching head lice, being bullied, falling behind, or dropping out altogether. Some parents opt instead to unschool their children by choosing the less trodden path of educating their children at home. The practice goes by many names. In addition to unschooling, some call it life learning, natural learning, or free-range learning. Perhaps the most familiar term is homeschooling. Quebec's Ministry of Education and Higher Learning outlines the obligations of parents who homeschool their children in its homeschooling policy framework. The policy states that parents must be able to ensure that their children receive instruction and benefit from an educational experience equivalent to what is provided at school, and that will enable them to enter or re-enter a Quebec school. Parents must also present an educational plan equivalent to what is provided in Quebec schools, and any textbooks and teaching materials that will be used to ensure that their children are available for the school board evaluation. According to the Ministry, it is the duty of the school board to determine whether the instruction given at home would enable a child to re-enter or enter the public or private school system. Abitibi resident Normande Vaillancourt chose homeschooling well before her daughter, now 14, was even born. Learning is something that can take place anywhere with any type of material. It could be explaining a concept by drawing it in the sand or on a piece of paper. This we do a lot of as we tend to travel a lot, she said, adding, with homeschooling, a child has lots of time to play. Their child is based around playing. As parents, we can follow their individual progress and link their learning with everyday experiences like what they saw and did that week. Catherine Arouard decided to take her children's education into her own hands after her daughter's, now 12, unpleasant experiences came to the fore in grade 1. I believe my daughter became frustrated with not being able to decide what she wanted to learn or to follow her instinct. It seems like more time is spent on testing kids rather than teaching them. Plus, at school, there are time restrictions on activities. So, if your child feels like drawing for 10 minutes or an hour, they can't do that. There's no point in forcing a child to do something they hate. What I've learned from my own children is that when they're ready to learn something, they will snap it up very quickly. Each family determines a daily learning schedule. As Arouard explains, every family has a different schedule and way of doing things. It's therefore up to them to create their own philosophy, adapting it to the needs of each child. The notion of labelling oneself as a teacher is not used in homeschooling families. Instead, most parents, including Arouard and Vaillancourt, prefer to use terms such as guide or instructor. Neither of them has opted for their children to complete the end-of-year examinations administered by Ministry of Education and Higher Learning. Nonetheless, they regularly refer to the Ministry's website detailing the progression of learning for each subject. In this regard, the differences between traditional learning and homeschooling are apparent. Rather than focusing on one particular theme and then evaluating what a child recalls about it, the philosophy behind homeschooling is to create new skills, experiences and knowledge by following the rhythm and interests of each child. We do school every day. I know by looking at my daughter that she's had enough of something, so we'll work for 1 hour and then take a break before continuing on to something else, explains Vaillancourt. Arouard adds, kids need to be guided into learning what they don't already know. It brings them to learn new things that they never knew existed. They may be reticent at first, but they end up finding something fun in the end. We guide them by taking their hand, and often they surprise us by running ahead. Even if homeschool is demanding on many levels, for the families who do it, the experience itself is invaluable.
Thank you for listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more news, editorials, and opinion, visit lifeinquebec.com.